Welcome to another episode of the Community Broadband Bits podcast. I'm Christopher Mitchell at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance in St. Paul, Minnesota. Hope you enjoyed that breather last week. Wanted to just let you catch up. Had that wonderful episode on the horror of the future of the music labels kicking people off the internet when anyone that was attached to a Wi-Fi access point happened to be accused of downloading something. So I hope you caught that conversation. But today we are going to be talking about a little grab bag of topics, and I've got in the order of importance, but I won't tell you if it's ascending or descending. Sean Gonsalves, welcome to the show.
All right. I get mentioned first, but something tells me I might not be number one.
You're going to be with us the longest on the show. We're going to do this and we're going to kick people off after each major segment. Sean, communications guru for the Institute for Local Self-Reliance's Community Broadband Networks team.
I love that title, guru.
Yes. It's way better than the reverse of Urug. Rye is also here from the research team. Welcome.
Thank you, Chris. I guess in the middle is the only safe place to be in this group.
Right. You're at least assured of your status. And right. Rye, Marketilio, we've dropped the McCracken. It just takes too long to say, and now I've wasted even more time in explaining that. But we've got Jess Auer here joining us too. And Jess, I'm really excited you could join us for this first segment. You do a lot of research for us with the research team, and have been focused on the tribal broadband boot camps and research around tribal networks. But let's start off with asking you why you're in a coffee shop which doesn't have the best audio background.
Yeah, just as you were introducing me, a motorcycle drove by, so I'm glad you missed that. I am in a coffee shop in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, because I was in Asheville, North Carolina about up until a week ago, and it's not a place to be if you want to work, if you want to drink water, if you want to enjoy living right now. So that's why I'm here.
Yes, so you came out to join us at our retreat right after Helene came by, and so we wanted to share a little bit of what you went through, and I think just give people a little bit of a sense of like what happened in Asheville and Western North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, but also I think what it's like to be in the middle of that, to be basically kicked back 20 or 30 years telecommunications wise.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
So let's start with the storm. The storm is approaching. And we all knew that it was going to be a soaker, I guess. But at what point, and I'm curious if you were jumping on the internet or what. At what point did you realize that this was not going to be just a typical bad storm that you might have experienced before?
It's a kind of a complicated question. I was going to drive to Chapel Hill to visit a friend that Thursday night, and Evan was like, my husband was like, "You can't. That's stupid. Don't drive through this." And partially, I think as a Floridian, you get a little bit inured to like some of the weather forecasting. But they were already saying, Wednesday, Thursday night. Wednesday, we had a bad storm. And then they were saying that we were expecting, 10 to 15 inches of rain. I know that's a big number, but it's hard for me to envision what that might mean, what it will mean for people to get 10 to 15 inches of rain.
Yeah, it happened in Minnesota, in southern Minnesota, and near the Bluffs, which is not most of Minnesota's topography. But they got like 14 inches of rain. And one of the things that I know happened down there, I actually went down there to visit a fiber provider after it happened, was that rivers rerouted themselves. It's catastrophic to have that much flooding, particularly in an area with ridges where it can become quite concentrated.
We woke up Friday morning. We had like a bar of cell signal, and I actually sent both you, Chris, and Rye a message saying that we had no power and I wasn't going to work. But we saw trees down, definitely houses were damaged, cars, whatnot. And we walked to a bridge and we saw the river flooding. And that was the first time, one of the rivers in town flooding. That was sort of the first time that I sort of recognized how I had an inkling of how bad this could be. We saw what you might have seen on the news, the River Arts District was flooding because of the French Broad River. But, something that I mentioned to all of you at the retreat was that because we had no outside information, we had no access to information, I had no idea of the true scope of the destruction until I was in the Charlotte airport and was able to look at images and read reporting for the first time. That's a sort of disorienting experience to be both in the middle of it and also have no sense of the scale of it.
You had a bar in the morning, and I think you weren't able to make phone calls and you weren't able to really access the internet, right? You could just basically do texting.
Yeah, I had a bar in the morning, and this actually happened to a lot of people I talked to in Asheville. And I could get a message out, although I didn't get anything back from anyone for hours and hours, but then it went away, and it went away everywhere. And a friend walked to our house and said, "Oh, I had a bar over by the bridge." That's actually why we went to the bridge, is to get some cell phone coverage. When we got there, a few people were on the phone, so somebody was getting through somewhere. There were those pockets that we found where I could see people on the phone, but I couldn't get a text through. It certainly couldn't get online. I couldn't make a phone call, anything like that.
I want to ask one other question. I want to see if anyone else has any questions or if I've missed any key topics. But this storm, it messed up the water system, which is usually buried very deep in cities. And so you get a sense of the scale of destruction. I don't know that it's unreasonable to think the airport would have still had telecommunications, but you flew out of Asheville and the airport itself seems to have had no telecommunications.
This is a confusing thing because in the airport's shop, I was able to use my card to pay for something. So somewhere there was some kind of connection. But at the gates, they said their systems were down. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't get online. They couldn't check anything for anyone. It was a very confusing experience. And the way we had to board the plane was they got on the phone and they called somebody in an office, and we read out our seat assignment and they checked the manifest and they okayed us. And then we just walked through. And I guess they checked us off or something. I don't know how they would have even known, but the connections among facilities at the airport were not there. And I don't know why that was exactly, because there was some sort of connection at some point, and some points, I should say. But yeah, it was a unique experience for me for sure.
Yeah. So I just, I feel like it is fascinating to me how there's so many things to talk about with this. We're not going to spend the whole show on it, but Sean, what did you want to ask?
It just made me think of a lot of things. I mean, I live in a part of the country, Cape Cod, Massachusetts, where we are both in the path of hurricanes and blizzards. Although the weather patterns seem to have changed so that we haven't been getting hit as much as in times past. I've been around with hurricanes where we were without power for 2-3 weeks, couldn't flush toilets, et cetera, blizzards and all those kind of things. And so that sense of isolation and devastation I can relate to some degree. But it makes me think about, as it relates to telecommunications, it speaks to, sort of the significance of having resilient infrastructure that can, especially as these kind of things are going to happen more and more often, though not being an engineer, I wonder if, what telecommunication infrastructure could really actually survive a kind of a catastrophe like we saw in the area in Asheville, North Carolina.
Well,
area.
I think the cell towers can, and then I suspect they ran out of backup power, right? I mean
No, that's not what happened.
Oh, okay.
Supposedly the fiber feeding those towers was destroyed.
So I'm at a loss then. I'm at a loss of how it worked for a while. I mean, presumably you could have had continuing erosion, uncovering things and damaging it over time. We'll have to wait for further reports to see if that's substantiated or not, Jess. You're getting that from an official source, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that was from a news article. I mean, the thing about being in it is we learned that there was no water, and it made no sense. What could possibly happen to the water? Because around us there was tree damage and people were experiencing awful things, but it didn't compute. And cell service was like, how is it possible that cell service goes out completely in an entire region? That's what they are saying, or at least that's what I've read, is that fiber connections to the cell towers went down. And I'm sure the power was a contributing factor as well in some places, but that's why it was taking so long to get restored. They couldn't just prioritize the cell towers. It was other things happening.
Rye, any comments?
Just to say that, I'm in southern Minnesota, and we went through that storm that Chris mentioned. I'm just a few miles downstream of where that river rerouted itself around the dam and dropped that house into the river a couple months ago at the end of June. And we had, a couple feet of water in the backyard and a foot of water in the basement for a while. But we had power the whole time and internet service the whole time. And I can't even imagine the level of magnitude that it drops you into, to not only be going through that, but also to be completely cut off from the outside world, from any kind of other resources that you might be able to call in to help. So
Well, and then I think the last thing was just also, as you're trying to figure out, Jess, how to make a decision about coming to join us or not, you have a limited amount of gasoline, no real way to get information on whether you need to conserve it or if you're gonna have resolution of this stuff in a few weeks, or without that lack of information is just, it's got to be really killer as you're trying to figure out just what to do over the next few days.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely one of those with trying to get some self-service and gas, like you would see a line or you would see a crowd and you would just join it because certainly there's something here that you might need and ask, why are you here? And they'd be, oh, I can get a signal here. And so you try to get a signal there. I think everybody was stressed, and I haven't read too many reports of people like flying off the handle or however you want to say it, but I can imagine that's definitely, it felt easy to do because it was just so no context and no information. And never mind, I won't put my public radio station on blast, but I just feel like with no way to hear, even in some kinds, the broadcast, or no way to hear what the county was saying or the city was saying, you just had to kind of like ask everybody who you saw what they knew and how they knew it and hope that they had good information, which is not always the case. Definitely some people heard rumors of things and went to check it out and then stood in a line for an hour where there was no actual cash in the ATM. So
Did you dial the FM dial, or did you not have a device that could do that? I'm just out of curiosity. You're on the prepper continuum, right? Your family is.
no. I mean, we would get in the car and we would turn the car on at like on an hourly like basis to catch the news coverage. So we have that, but we don't have any other FM.
Yeah, who does?
Power radio station. And we have solar panels, and we will, I think, always kick ourselves for not getting a battery for those solar panels, because we would have been in a much better position if we had.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jess. There's a bunch of other things. Sean, did you want to wrap up?
I am a wannabe prepper, and listening to this conversation is inspiring me to consider becoming a ham radio operator.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I do feel like. I wonder how many people actually were able to get information and then weren't able to share it because no one really knew that they were there. Ham radio operators are usually prepared to be relaying information and things like that.
So I'll just say one last thing is that there is a local radio station, and I read coverage of them recently that they've been basically on the air the whole time, and how they were getting their information was they plugged into the ham radio community and were learning things that other people just were not.
Yep. Well, I guess the last thing I would say on that also is Chattanooga, I think, is prepared for this. I don't remember if we've done an in-depth coverage of it, but one of the things that they've been doing is moving through the community and setting up kind of like regional areas where they have significant off-grid storage. They have presumably like supplies. People should know to go there where they'd have Wi-Fi and things like that, even if it's not connected to the wider internet, where people could jump and get some local resources and things like that. And so some communities, I think, are preparing for this, and I hope that more take notice of this and are prepared for it. We saw this in Marin County with fires. We've seen it in a number of other places. It's only going to get worse. We look forward to having you back in Asheville and back on the show, Jess. So good luck, and we look forward to catching up with you next time.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, Jess.
Our second story is about the Federal Communications Commission, and the United States House Committee on Oversight is decided to play politics by accusing the FCC of possibly playing politics in denying Starlink the award from the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, which we've covered a number of times before. And so we wanted to talk briefly about this. I certainly did, and I wanted to drag the two of you into it because I'm so annoyed. Like, government oversight is a real thing, and there's a lot of things that it should be overseeing. But the idea that Elon Musk, who happens to be a darling of the conservatives right now, seems to be getting a lot of favorable treatment from Republicans in Congress. So I guess I'll just throw it out there and ask. I don't know which one of you wants to take it first, but I'll probably pick on Rye. What do you think about this hearing to ask whether or not the FCC has played politics just to try to screw SpaceX out of this award?
I guess the first thing to say is that it's interesting timing. So the FCC denied Starlink's long form application all the way back in August of 2022. So now here we are 26 months later, and this thing comes out of the woodwork. It is comes, right on the heels of Hurricane Helene and the FCC's decision to expand Lifeline eligibility to Starlink service to try to get some of the folks there in the disaster recovery situation reconnected to the internet. But why else are we talking about this, right now?
That's one of the things that I had said was I don't know why every airport doesn't have 2 or 3 Starlink terminals sitting around waiting for an emergency. But it's unrelated to the RDOF award. Sean?
I think having been in print journalism for a while, for a couple of decades, and then having worked in PR, I don't know if it was Elon himself or he just has a great PR department, because the convergence, I think, of what happened in what we just talked about in North Carolina and elsewhere with these hurricanes, is kind of like, I could imagine some PR person saying this is a great moment to kind of like talk about Starlink as being like the answer to connectivity. But all of that sort of, plays on, I think, the general public's, not knowing that Starlink couldn't possibly be the answer. It certainly can be part of the mix. But it's almost like saying, look, we can provide, temporary campers, but that's not the same thing as having a house. And right. So
there's one comedian. There was a comedian. I don't remember who it is right now, but he literally makes the joke, which is great, which is, the black box on the plane. Why don't they make the whole plane out of the black box? Yeah. Like that's literally what we're dealing with right here. Right? Like Starlink works in this limited situation. Why don't we just have everyone use it? Because it doesn't work. Like that, like sorry, I just zucchini'd you.
Oh,
Rye does have on a eat vegetables t-shirt, so I don't blame you.
I think we can all eat a little more vegetables, Sean.
And
especially me.
Zucchini is a code word we happen to adopt in terms of when we're interrupting each other. What I find interesting about this is that the federal government does discriminate when it comes to Elon Musk, overwhelmingly in his favor. The man is in violation of so many laws in the United States and in Europe as well. And he still is a recipient of billions upon billions of taxpayer dollars for good reason. His rockets are the best, I guess, or certainly top of the rockets that are available. But nonetheless, like the man brags about violating drug laws, and as a contractor to the federal government, you're not supposed to do that in any shape or form. This is very clear. He has violated untold numbers of labor laws, and still, no matter how many laws he breaks, he continues to receive contract after contract without much investigation. He seems to be in violation of numerous consent decrees or other agreements with the Federal Trade Commission, among others. And so I will say the federal government overwhelmingly discriminates on the matter of Musk, but it goes in the other direction. Now, when it comes to this, the thing that I'd be fascinated by is if the Federal Communications Commission had decided to give Starlink all of this money, short of $1 billion, but approaching $1 billion for rural connectivity, because what it would mean is that in a lot of rural areas, you would have waiting lists to get service. That is the nature of the service today. And I think Starlink is wonderful. It is amazing if you're on a boat. It's amazing if you're fighting a massive wildfire. It is just wonderful technology that is so important. It's amazing on the battlefield and so important to stop creeping in fascism. So I'm not a naysayer, but at the same time, we need to invest money into technologies that can serve everyone, not just the people who are the quickest to sign up. And that is what is happening right now. Starlink cannot serve everyone on the ground in these rural areas that need service.
To say nothing of the fact that it's not exactly cheap to get Starlink.
Right. Although it's also not cheap to drop $10,000 on a fiber connection to a rural location. So I mean, I'll say that I agree with you, Sean, and I'll just also agree that there's others who would say that other solutions, when it comes to the word cheap, it can mean there's different degrees of magnitude.
But I mean, as an individual subscriber, even when the infrastructure is in place, it ain't cheap to sign up, is what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah, the thing I was going to add is, Sean and you, Chris, both mentioned it, is there's a difference in scale between providing temporary service to people in a disaster situation in North Carolina and Starlink being able to fulfill the hundreds of millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of locations that it bid for to provide service to under RDOF. Also, to be clear here, right, the letter that was written by Comer calls this an unlawful clawback of funds by the FCC. To be clear, the RDOF was designed under the last FCC. Starlink was allowed to participate in that process in the fall and winter of 2020. Whether Starlink should have been able or should have been allowed to be an initial participant, I think, is something that is, worthy of conversation. And then the new FCC went through the established process whereby they said, okay, you applied for these funds, we gave you provisional wins, but then we both acknowledge that you have to go through a long form application process and convince us that you're able to financially and technically meet the commitments that you've made in order to get these precious public funds. It looked at Starlink's long form application from January to August 2022 and decided that they couldn't do it. And so it's not as if on a whim they decided, we need to really throw one at Elon Musk.
Yes, I think the same thing would have happened if it was Sean Gonsalves, 300-mile high orbiting platform internet technology. You got to work on your technology name, Sean. That's a terrible name for a service.
If we're going to follow this logic, the name of my LLC would be Trust Me, Bro. I can do it.
But I gotta say that, like, it's very clear that there is a challenge, and time will tell whether or not future Starlink speed tests in aggregate show that it was able to increase capacity as fast as it's adding users to the system. Because we all watched the speed tests that Starlink had originally were pretty good. And over the past several years, we've watched as they have come down, and I don't think we've really seen them go up significantly, although some people have had really good experiences. It's still far better internet access than many people in remote areas can get. However, it's not clear that it meets the standards of the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. And as you noted, Rye, I think it was a really bad decision. You said it was worthy of conversation. It was a bad decision to just let anyone bid. And then the thing is that in the end, you had to prove that you could make it work. And they didn't. So last word, Rye, before you head off.
No, I think it's just it's emblematic of, maybe both the success and failure of RDOF, that more than a third of the RDOF auction wins were placed in default by the FCC after looking at the long form application. Starlink wasn't the only provider that was deemed not able to meet the commitments that it had promised to. And so, all of this is happening in a larger context. And, the idea that the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability has the technical expertise and rigor and,
interest
perspective in levying an actual, fair and faithful look at what's going on here is laughable to me.
Yeah. Rye, I know you got to run off to a meeting. I think Jess is going to be there. You're going to want to pay attention. I don't know if she's working today or if she's just hanging out in a coffee shop. So you're going to want to look into that.
I'll see what I can find out.
All right.
Thanks, you guys.
Yeah. Okay, Sean, we got a couple of quick hitters to wrap up the show. First of all, you've covered Destination Crenshaw in California. We are very excited to see that it has not cleared all of the hurdles. However, it has now been recommended to be funded by the California Public Utility Commission, and in some number of weeks will likely be voted on by the commission to be funded. What project is this?
Oh, man, I love this project. Destination Crenshaw is part of this a nonprofit organization that's really looking to revitalize that whole area in South Central Los Angeles. And so it's part of this overall plan to create what they're calling digital opportunity zone, and which also, by the way, includes, when it's done, will be America's largest open air museum. There's a bunch of murals and pocket parks, etc. But they really thought it was really important, particularly after the pandemic, to create this digital opportunity zone and want to build out fiber to thousands of addresses in that particular unserved and underserved part of the city.
Right, and this is in Los Angeles, just to make sure. I forget if you mentioned that.
I should have. Yes, Los Angeles, South Central Los Angeles.
That's in California now. I think people got Planet Earth, Milky Way.
I hope people that are listening to this know that Los Angeles is in California. But at any rate, it's exciting. And for a while, I was, as the CPUC, the California Public Utility Commission, was round after round giving out grants. And and from the first round, I was hoping to see Destination Crenshaw be awarded. And as time went on, I'm like, oh man, please tell me that they're not going to be left in the dust, particularly in a city where this is a huge issue. And lo and behold, here we are. And as you mentioned, they haven't crossed the final hurdle for this $25 million loan to build out fiber.
Loan, it's a full-on grant.
No, excuse me. I didn't mean to say loan. Yes, a grant. Exactly. But they've got that final hurdle, but I'm not aware of any recommendations so far that the CPC has made that has been rejected. So I think this is a really good sign.
Yes. Yeah. And I think you're right. The larger plan, the Destination Crenshaw is working with a company called Plenary that is the partner. They're going to build this open access network. This award will fund a significant amount of construction, I believe, but it's not to the thousands of homes yet. This is the beginning of it, I think. And I think they will stretch it out with additional funds. This will help get to like the first tranche of folks.
Yeah, exactly. They're focused initially on businesses and homes right in around that Crenshaw Boulevard district, and this comes as also, I believe, it was about 6 months or so ago that WeLink and LA County, inked a partnership to deliver fixed wireless access to about 275,000 addresses in a more easterly part of Los Angeles. What was interesting to me is how all of these entities and groups were kind of coordinating to make sure that there wasn't an overlap. And so this is great news. And I'm looking forward to reaching out to Jason to do a follow-up to see how excited they are and kind of what the next steps are. Of course, we'll have to wait until they get the final, official notice, but it looks like they're heading in that direction. And man, what a major win, especially given all of the hard work and advocacy that's gone on with the Digital Equity LA, which Destination Crenshaw is a part of, and CADE. I think all of these awards are a real reflection of all of the work that they've done to really center community broadband solutions.
Right. And you're talking about Jason Foster, who's running the Destination Crenshaw effort.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's exciting, and I just give so much credit to people in Los Angeles that are organizing around this, Digital Equity LA, people working for the county, the city of LA, who have made this a priority. They have a plan. They have multiple approaches in order to be figuring out how to address this very expensive challenge when you're dealing with millions of people who need a network that will actually meet their needs. We're going to move on, though. The American Association for Public Broadband, something. What's up with them?
American Association for Public Broadband. Yeah. So they've just rolled out this new mentorship program, which I think is just a great resource. This is in addition to a few months ago, they put out the How to Build a Public Broadband Network handbook or guidebook. They did a series of webinars, and now they've unveiled in the past few weeks here, this mentorship program that looks to pair communities that are seriously considering municipal broadband with communities who've successfully done it. And I think that's key because, we hear from a lot of communities that are kind of kicking the tires and they're always looking for resources and there's all these questions, and there's nothing better, I think, than for them to talk directly to communities who have crossed the various challenges and hurdles and navigated this whole thing. Of course, every, state and community has different nuances to this, but it's really important for communities that are really seriously considering to talk to people who've already done it. That's what this program is. It's this matching program. And so they've got this portal where potential mentees can sign up for mentors. And right now they've got this portal where cities or towns that have successful municipal broadband programs can participate and be a mentor, and communities that they're also looking that are seriously considering this to sign up. And I think that pairing can go a long way, and it's sort of part of the AAPP's overall goal to double the number of municipal networks in the next 5 years or so. So I think this is a fantastic resource, and communities, and there's lots of them that are thinking about municipal broadband would be well advised, I think, to check into this. It's a real way to sort of cut through the noise of these dark money campaigns that are out there and people saying, "Oh, this doesn't work," et cetera. There's nothing better than to call up a place like the different communities in Colorado who are really knocked the ball out of the park on municipal broadband to talk to people who are doing it day in and day out.
Yes, and I highly recommend people join AAPB. The AAPB's website is aapb.us. There is a fee to join. And you know what? To have someone like Gigi advocating for you and to be putting these resources together to be growing the movement, it's totally reasonable. And I hope people will find that in their budgets to support it. We need a serious organization like this to be moving us forward. I worked with Next Century Cities. I don't want to take anything away from them. I think people really should join Next Century Cities too. They are complementary organizations. So you just can't get away from the fact that we need to have some coordinating folks to bring people together and to learn from, to just like make it easier to collect this information.
You're right. There is a fee to become a member of AAPB, and all of the benefits that go with that. However, for the mentorship program, you don't have to become a paying member to participate. So
yeah, but if you're going to get tens of thousands of dollars of benefit, you should really pony up. So I'm
That's
just
right.
going to leave it there.
That's right.
Lastly, Vermont. We haven't talked about Vermont in a long enough time. We got to bring it up again. What's up with Vermont?
We love Vermont just because they've really centered community broadband, and they're going gangbusters. I mean, in the next few years, Vermont is going to be covered with fiber to the home networks, largely because of following this particular model. But one thing that they're doing, because they're well aware of something that we don't talk a lot about, but is definitely an issue, which is that all of these fiber networks are being built all over the country, and on the horizon is a massive labor shortage in terms of the people that are going to be building these networks. And so Vermont, once again, with great foresight, with Christine Hallquist and company over there at the Vermont Community Broadband Board, they've established 2 fiber optic apprenticeship programs. One is a more regional one, but there's another one that's a statewide program that is, and it's not just an apprenticeship program where it's like, hey, like shadow this worker for a day for free. They're actually paying people. And Surtex, which is a fiber builder in the New England area, is already signed up to participate. That they're looking to fill their ranks.
Yeah, Surtex has worked with municipal broadband in a number of cases, I know.
Yeah, they're terrific on that. And so I think this is just fabulous that, it's sort of how does Deanne say it? Feed 2 birds with 1 stone, or there's all these multiple wins.
I don't think she says that. Yeah. I don't think birds can fly if you put stones in their stomach, man.
No, oh, you're right. Let me it's not kill 2 birds with 1 stone, it's feed 2 birds with 1 seed. So anyway, I like that. It's better than killing birds. Feeding them is better.
Yes, but also don't feed them rocks.
That's right. And don't feed them rocks or Alka-Seltzer. Anyhow, I think what's cool about this is that telecom companies in the area really benefit from this in terms of, looking for, to fill their ranks as folks retire, as they're going to need to ramp up building. And also the labor force itself, where they're opening up jobs where people within that community can be working on building the networks that are going to be providing this connectivity. So it's a really cool program that's just getting underway. And Vermont is really a model in so many different ways. So it's just exciting to see that, not only are they focused on the ins and outs of how you have, of the communication union districts and how you fund them, but also on how you actually build a workforce to carry out and execute.
What I find entertaining is this was going to be, I think it'll be successful. And as it works, nobody will really notice, right? Like that's the thing about these sorts of programs is that like, they're going to be helpful. We have a significant challenge as we have retirements and people moving to other careers or whatever. But Vermont, as they work through this, and people just take it for granted that they got their fiber networks and that it wasn't a problem, so.
You're exactly right. And I mean, actually, it's true of like all infrastructure and a lot of government. It's like when it works, nobody noticed. The only time people notice these things is when something breaks down or it's not working.
Yeah, when you have a massive flood that like takes away your water and then they're like, oh, you won't have water again in October. And you're like, wait a minute, how is this possible? Like, just fix it. Like, oh, like it's going to be a lot of freaking work to get it back and then to balance the water and make sure it doesn't make you sick. I mean, it's all kinds of work.
When you're good at infrastructure, it's kind of like being a good referee in a sport. It's like nobody notices that you're doing your job.
Right.
It's only when you make a bad call that everybody's like, fire this person.
Yeah. And sometimes they say that when you make the right call.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, Sean, great to catch up with you. Thanks for bringing in some stories today. Wonderful to have you on again.
For sure. All right. Take care, man.
We have transcripts for this and other podcasts available at communitynuts.org/broadbandbits. Email us at podcast@muninetworks.org with your ideas for the show. Follow Chris on Twitter. His handle is @CommunityNets. Follow CommunityNets.org stories on Twitter. The handle's @MuniNetworks. Subscribe to this and other podcasts from ILSR, including Building Local Power, Local Energy Rules, and the Composting for Community podcast. You can access them anywhere you get your podcasts. You can catch the latest important research from all of our initiatives if you subscribe to our monthly newsletter at ilsr.org. While you're there, please take a moment to donate. Your support in any amount keeps us going. Thank you to Arnie Huseby for the song Warm Duck Shuffle, licensed through Creative Commons.